This is being recorded, so if you do not wish to be recorded, feel free to drop, and then this will be linked on the YouTube channel. So after this, again, the recording will be linked on the YouTube channel if you need to reference back to it as well. We ask that you stay connected with our Women in Tech. This is our second user group, and we're super excited about this group to continue to grow. So just make sure that you're following Women in Tech Marketo chapter. The rules, again, are on the screen. Post any topics that you wish that we would cover. And again, we just ask that you follow us and stay connected.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, we're trying to have events at least once a quarter. So we will be sending out email invites well in advance, but really hoping we can continue to get this group together.
There is a new Marketo user group, so people who are looking to learn the in-depths of Marketo and who are just starting out on their Marketo journey and want to learn more about the foundational aspects of Marketo Engage. There will be 5 sessions between now and the end of 2025. So use the QR code to sign up for those sessions and learn more about the platform itself. And then lastly, a couple more QR codes here. So there are bi-weekly office hours to learn more about the email designer starting on June 4th. So you can again use the QR code for that. And then permissions are being expanded for the specific email templates for admins. And you can learn more about the updates on the right-hand side of the screen. Super exciting program. I know we have a couple of the champions on the call, Britney and Courtney specifically. So if you're looking to become a Marketo champ, it's open. Applications close June 10th.
Yay.
So be sure to fill out those applications, get those in. And there are webinars specific to this, recordings to learn more about what the program entails, if you're a good fit, again, what the application entails. So feel free to fill that out, put your name in. I know Courtney and Britney have had nothing but great things to say about being a champ. So again, suggest applying.
Yeah, and as we just mentioned, the deadline is today. So if anyone has any questions about their application or what it's like being a champ, feel free to reach out to me and Britney directly. And then I see a few others on the call also who I know would be happy to help. So really hoping we get a good number of applicants for the programs this year. All right, and then I'm going to quickly run through a few additional housekeeping slides, bear with us. But Experience League is something that Adobe continues to optimize and improve, and they had a few key optimizations they specifically wanted to call out. So would love this group to get in there and start to play around with some of these things and provide feedback. But what you should be seeing now is more of a personalized homepage experience. As well as fresh perspective. So pure authored practical use cases and best practices. So sort of a continuation of the type of content that you are getting out of user groups. You should be able to find more of that on the Experience League today, as well as video playlists. So view expert selected topic specific video collections, all of that kind of stuff. So very excited about these updates. Another great opportunity for continued learnings and thought leadership is the 2025 Skills Exchange. It's going to be a multi-day, multi-solution experience, all digital, in mid-August. Different days will be focused on different products. So August 20th is specific to Marketo. But I've had the opportunity to attend and speak at some of these, and they're great sessions, very wonderful subject matter experts sharing key learnings, real life use cases. So highly encourage everyone to attend. Another key call out, there are AEP user groups that are launching, and they're having peer-to-peer meetups for RTCDP and AJO. There are some key locations that have been called out who already have a good start around these AEP user groups. But if you're interested in joining a chapter, sort of continuing to expand your knowledge in the Adobe suite of products, this would be a great forum to do so, as well as if you're interested in starting a new chapter or becoming a user group leader in this space. We will be sharing, as I mentioned, all of these files after this conversation today. So you'll be able to access the QR codes then if you have any interest. We're almost there. Upcoming user groups, there are several of those. The best part about these is there are a lot of virtual ones. So if you are interested in the topics, you should be able to attend. But now some of the user groups are also having in-person connects. So great opportunity to get together and network with key users. And then feedback is always encouraged. We know that this group, we're power users in the tools. We're seeing real applications, real things that we're running into on a day-to-day basis. So providing feedback on G2 or Trust Radius is something that Adobe really values. So if anyone is interested in doing some of that, that would be great. And here are just some more QR codes to directly link to provide those reviews and feedback. And then there are just a few product enhancements they wanted to call out before we move into the meat of the content. So a new dashboard to be able to monitor activity volume. I know this is something that this group is really excited about, being able to have more detailed perspectives into the different types of activities that your lead database is engaging with. So this is going to be a great view to start utilizing, as well as sort of a follow on to that enhanced feature is trigger tokens for any activity attribute. So another enhancement that we're very excited about. And then Gen Studio for PEM integration, allowing you to connect your content supply chain to your account orchestration strategy for a more streamlined campaign activation approach. So the Adobe product team just continues to provide these great optimizations on an ongoing basis. If any of these things really caught your interest and you'd like to dive more deeply into it, definitely let Megan and I know, and we can tee some of this up in a following user group. And now I'm very excited. So this is our second edition of the Women in Tech Marketo User Group. We started this really so it could be an open forum for Adobe Marketo users to connect, share ideas, best practices, and really highlight some key use cases where we're seeing Marketo being used in new ways. And so today I'm really excited to introduce Britney Young and Erine Leeuw. They are both wonderful Marketo power users and marketers from AWS, and very excited to have them walk through their experience of implementing AJO B2B and their strategy for how they're planning to use it in conjunction with Marketo moving forward. So I'll hand it over to y'all.
Thank you. Do we want to do a quick round of introductions?
Sure.
I'll start. My name is Erine. I'm a senior technical product manager at AWS, specifically related more to the customer experience side. And I've been pretty involved since almost day one, I want to say, in the general AEP implementation at AWS Marketing.
And I'm Britney Young, Senior Technical Product Manager at AWS, and I work specifically with our content channels and delivery tech team. So I'm also the Marketo product owner, and I've worked very closely with Erine on this initiative at AWS.
So I think today we're going to talk a bit about the introduction of what AJO B2B is, and like more like the steps involved of how you can get towards like journey orchestration, multi-channel journey orchestration from a B2B perspective. And then how we're positioning that at AWS Marketing with a few like key specific use cases that we went through for the initial phase, which we call P0 phase. And then Britney will take it on and take it over and describe how AWS is managing AJO B2B and Marketo and how we're imagining it working together and the best practices and key learnings we've had from this initial phase that has lasted, I want to say, almost like more than a year at least. And then of course a round of Q&A. Next slide, please. Next slide. So around how AJO B2B works, which I don't know whether everyone here is familiar about like of the B2B edition of AJO B2B compared to the AJO version. But it's slightly different because it's more account based or like more specifically like buying group based. So what differs really is that you start off with creating a buying group and a solution interest, which tells you something about like the relevant people involved in a specific account that can lead up to like making a specific contract that sales can then take up as an opportunity to close on. So you then create a buying group. You can set up a journey and content, and that's really like a multi-channel journey that you can set up with like different split paths depending on like certain attributes at both an account and a person level. And then yeah, you can target them and really orchestrate it however you want it with different channels. So think of sending an audience over to LinkedIn, or like having like trigger campaigns sent to Marketo, or even sharing audiences to Adobe Target. So really like many of the more like most used channels, I would say, from a marketing perspective, you can really use here and leverage here. And what you then do is you really set up the journey however you want it to be, you launch it, and then you can check the engagement of specific buying groups that you created. So each buying groups that you create, it engage with specific content, and you can track that. And depending on whether like it engages well or not well, you can then follow up with other activities that you can do. So think of, hey, if like my buying group is super engaged, I can then coordinate with sales and send it over to sales for them to follow up on. Or if they're not engaged, well, maybe it helps if we move them to a different journey, or maybe nurture them some more before we send them over to sales. So those are all actions that you can then take depending on the engagement of your buying group. And then the fourth one I mentioned is coordinating with sales. You can notify sales of this engagement, or like to loop them into specific journeys for like, for instance, cross-selling or upselling. And then engaging with them, and you can also like connect the data downstream to the CRM. I think at AWS Marketing we use Salesforce, so we're in the process of connecting those sources, so AEP and Salesforce, so that's better connected downstream and upstream as well. And then the fifth one is, of course, like measure the performance. We're creating these journeys, so you have this component in AEP called like customer journey analytics, so CJ in short. So really building the necessary dashboards and scaling it out to create like these multi-channel templates as well from these journeys, to really see what the performance of these journeys is, and if there are certain components that need to be improved or optimized. Next slide. And then now that you know a bit about like how the whole B2B edition works, and how we're using it at AWS Marketing as well, I wanted to share also how we're positioning AJO B2B and AP at large at AWS Marketing. So we have identified 3 strategic focus areas, I would say, for the rest of 2025 and a chunk of 2026, around how we want to leverage AEP or AJO B2B, a bit used interchangeably, I would say here. So take that with a grain of salt. So since AJO B2B has launched this like copy and paste feature, I would say, of journeys, we are building AEP templates so that it's a lot easier to like scale certain marketing activities from a multi-channel orchestration perspective. So really, like, for instance, like a service launch or feature announcements or certain adoption campaigns, or maybe even like cross-selling and upselling as well in the future, or an event nurture, all of those like specific like marketing activities that we do at large. Think through whether it makes sense to have a more common template of how we do those at AWS Marketing, and then build those out in AJO B2B, so that marketers can then grab their specific audience that's needed, and then push those through those AEP activation or AJO B2B journey templates. So that's the first one. And then the second one is, AJO B2B is, of course, an account-based tool since it is the B2B version. So really like going more in depth and exploring that. I mentioned that we've gone through the P0 phase, which is like the initial phase of the initial capabilities that we launched at AWS Marketing with AJO B2B. And there's a lot more that we want to explore, of course, in AJO B2B to get the most of it. Account-based marketing is one like major piece. So really coordinated account-based campaigns for those like one-to-one, one-to-few, and one-to-many like marketing moments that we want to have with our like larger accounts that we market to at AWS. And then really also do that connection to sales, right? So both have a better, so if we go back to the journey, it's like the first piece of like the creating the buying groups, optimizing that piece of how do we define those buying groups and being more rule-based in that, maybe even in the future, like an ML model-based approach. And also the fourth point of coordinating with sales and having a better handoff process with sales and potentially even automating how we create these opportunities in Salesforce or in like AWS Salesforce instance when there is a high engagement. So that's the second piece. And then the third piece is aligning the technical capabilities with long-term business priorities. At AWS, we do have like some long-term business priorities that we define for some years, and really like aligning AEP with those priorities, which come as no surprise. It's like account-based marketing. Reinvent is also always like a very big ticket item. Customer lifetime initiatives to really like keep our like customer base like evergreen and growing. So all of those activities, being really close to the marketers and really aligning AJO B2B capabilities to be very much in line with what we're trying to achieve the next few years from a marketing strategy perspective. Next slide, please. So I mentioned like the past year that we went through like this AEP implementation phase where we launched AEP, and I just wanted to stand still of how our current marketing approach is and where we want to go to even more so in the future, which is like even further away than what I just mentioned, is really the current marketing approach is very much so like delivery based on like specific channels. So we have teams that like create content for specific channels and really like optimize in silos. So like email has their own marketing teams and marketing builders, and then you have like websites that is like very much separate from email and so on and so forth for different channels, and they're not really like talking that much to each other. Then we have content focused on the latest campaigns where we build content and we keep updating content for our latest campaign, and we really have like content that we create at large at AWS Marketing. Limited personalization across channels. We have like quite since we have such a big customer base at AWS Marketing, we have limited let's say resourcing to create like personalization at scale and at large across channels. So that's something that we're thinking of from a tech perspective, like, hey, how can we enable that to really like personalize better, and how can we leverage existing content fragments and existing content that we have across channels to better personalize and better like serve customers like what they want to see at the right time, which in the end is all what marketing is about. And then the final piece is right now, like sales and marketing, like since we are such a big organization, there is like a lots of coordination happening between marketing and sales. And ideally we want to streamline that process, right? And that streamlining is like it works pretty well at a lead-based perspective. So at like a person level, but it's not really yet optimized at a buying group or at an account level. So that's also like a piece to think of, like, hey, like there is also optimization opportunities there that we want to do. So where we want to go is really have like journey focused campaigns, multi-channel journeys that are orchestrated and not in silos, and really like talking to each other with like one overarching like experience. Lots more cross-channel personalization, leveraging those content fragments or content that we already have at the different channels, and really calling upon them to serve customers at the right time, so that customers, it feels more personalized to them, whilst we keep that content repository not static, but definitely not like tailored to one specific customer. And then a CDP with real-time data feeds, so really leveraging the latest information that we have around accounts, customers. There's the signals that they're giving us in real time from Marketo and from the web, but also think of like leveraging first-party and third-party like intent data to really target them better. And then the final one that I mentioned already is like that more streamlined sales handover, especially at a buying group and or account level. Next slide. Yeah, so AJO B2B would enable AWS to shift to this account-based marketing, so ABM, through integrations with the CDP, cross-channel orchestration, buying group creation, and the sales intelligence reporting that we're thinking through. I'm happy to talk more later if there are any questions, of course. So use cases that have been stood up as of May 2025. We had some, I would say, like foundational use cases that we took on at AWS Marketing to deliver the initial capabilities that we want AJO B2B and AEP at large to have. But beyond these P0 use cases, also note that we are working to launch additional capabilities at AEP and really like evolve and iterate upon what our version of AJO B2B is, and AEP in general is capable of, and as well like what data we add in there, which is very important from like a marketing perspective. So the first one and the fifth one is related to like our rapid ramp credits. So we have multiple credit programs at AWS Marketing to really drive like specific audiences and segments to use credits so that they can get familiar with AWS, and then hopefully become more of a meaningful biller to us, but also for us to provide these credits so that they can like try to understand how AWS services can fit their use cases. And like deliver added value to them, right? So we have this specific credit program, and then we send these reminder emails to customers. So we wanted to have like a more personalized version of sending these credit balances ahead of expiration. So that's the first one. And then the fifth one is related to retargeting customers that abandon the this rapid ramp credit form. So through both email and like AWS websites. So, and then the second one that we launched, so I'm not doing them very much in order, sorry. The second one that we launched is it's abbreviation of ABM, which was one of the initial ones based on like account-based nurture or account-based marketing. But that was related to our like US enterprise accounts and sending them AI/ML related content based on whether they have expressed account-based intent of AI and ML related terms. Because if they've expressed intent related to AI/ML terms, well, then they are a lot more interested, hopefully, in really adopting AI/ML services. And then the third one is related to Contact Us. So we wanted to explore in Contact Us more CGA capabilities and like real-time metrics from the website. So the Contact Us is really to create for us to create a dashboard that really visualize the Contact Us journey flow on the website, and be able to see like the different journey visualizations that CGA has, but also leverage that real-time component that the web and AEP provide us by adopting AEP compared to like the previous like system architecture that we had at AWS Marketing. Fourth one was related to the self-service revenue. So that's that adoption and nurture funnel that I mentioned a few slides ago, I think. So we have like these specific adoption flows when a customer starts using each service. So being able to create and orchestrate those at large for I think like we're at like 300 plus services that we are today. So creating those for the 300 plus services, ideally automatically would be great. So thinking through how we want to do that at AWS Marketing has been on the horizon. And then global nurture is very much similar to the ABM use case, but then related to EMEA and like the localization of all of the content and thinking through how we want to do that for like a geo that has like these different countries and like different setups compared to Namer, which is very much only English, only US based folks almost. So yeah, that were the initial use cases that we launched or are still launching in the process of like finalizing it at AWS Marketing. Do we have a next slide? Yes, we do. Next slide. So what we keep telling marketers, what really like has a lot of impact or AEP, the impact of AEP from a marketer perspective is really being able to have that centralized tool where you can orchestrate journeys, like multi-channel journeys that improve targeting. So you can use these intent signals however you define them from like first party, so like data that you have in your own database, but also from like third party intents versus at an account level, you can leverage that to target your customer base better. So when you see, hey, like people have, you know, like I see that this data is telling me that a certain account is really interested in AI/ML, then really add them to an audience and route them to an AI/ML nurture so that they are like engaged leads that you can then create an opportunity with sales. Using that real-time customer data, so not needing to wait like 24 hours for data to sync or even more in some cases, that's been a huge plus. The creation of buying groups and focusing and shifting gears more towards that account-based journey thinking compared to like traditional lead-based thinking has been a good shift as well, especially for teams that deal with like larger accounts. And then of course the future improved sales coordination, having a better hand of process. So that's from a marketer perspective. And then we also have from like customer and partner perspective. Well, from a customer, of course, like what if you orchestrate these journeys like across channels well, you'll have a more consistent personalized experience across the different touch points. And of course, an improved customer experience leads to higher loyalty, engagement, spend, all of that good stuff. Because in the end, you know, we want to deliver the right message at the right time through the right channel. Again, that's all what marketing really is about, if you want to break it down to like one sentence. And then for our partners specifically, having more relevant and timely messaging for effective go-to-market and AWS product being consistently represented to clients. I think that wraps up my piece of the presentation. Now, Britney, leaving it to you to walk through the AJO B2B and Marketo and how it will work together.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to talk us through how we imagine the two systems working together. I know, like myself, when I first heard about AJO B2B, a lot of us champs even question, like, how is this different from Marketo? And some of you all have had the same question. And like many of you, you might already, you probably already have Marketo. And for us at AWS, we've done a ton of foundational work to build the instance we have today that's plugged into a lot of our own internal systems. And of course, we wouldn't want to throw that away. So I really want everyone to think about the strengths that the two bring together. With Marketo, by continuing to use Marketo, you still will get to leverage all of the great things when it comes to lead management and scoring, your nurture streams, as well as the strong integration that it has with CRMs like Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics. AJO B2B in the future, like with AEP, will have those integrations as well. But for now, Marketo still is leading in that area. And you still will get that same benefit of having your B2B funnel progression and being able to really target your known audience. On the other side, you can really use AJO B2B to complement what Marketo has by allowing you to leverage real-time omni-channel journey orchestration and really being able to use it for more of those behavioral point-in-time events. And I know Erine had already mentioned, like, one of our use cases was using when someone's like abandoning a form, like that's a good use case as that sort of real-time point and event type of action that takes place. And as well as with AJO B2B, it's going to allow you to support both the anonymous piece of the journey as well as the known part of the journey, and allow you to do so for personalization, both on web and in apps. I can go to the next slide. And so the key benefits that we saw with using AJO B2B along with Marketo, first with that seamless data flow. So there is a bidirectional sync between Marketo and AJO B2B. You are going to be able to leverage that real-time account contact data sharing. And by leveraging the two, we also truly get that unified customer profile of what's happening in Marketo, as well as not even just, I would say, AJO B2B, but like if you have other data sources that are feeding into AEP, you'll really get to see that full view of your customer. The other key benefit we saw was how the two really played together and worked together. So with Marketo, like I mentioned before, you get to leverage all of the lead management and scoring, all the things you've really, built out in Marketo, and share that into AJO B2B, and vice versa. Within AJO B2B, you can actually orchestrate omni-channel journeys beyond just email, and that's really a nice way that the two kind of share both of their strengths, as well as the shared asset library for all of your templates. And the third benefit we saw is that enhanced customer experience. If any of you are at an enterprise company, you know how crazy that can be, especially, or I would say even mid-size. If you have several different business units, everybody's wanting to email and do things to the customers, and they're that was the third benefit for us, is being able to truly coordinate all of those messages so that your customers are getting a consistent brand experience, as well as improved targeting and accuracy. And it's not just everyone, throwing things at your customers at different times. Next slide. And so some of the key use cases that we saw for integrating with Marketo have to do with what I mentioned previously, with those real-time signals that you're getting within AJO B2B to then send those into Marketo to actually trigger different nurture campaigns. The other use case is leveraging this would be like the opposite way, taking your lead scores that you're getting in Marketo and all of your statuses, things like that, and then using that to then add the personalization to your AJO B2B journeys. Then there's also the opportunity to have more coordinated journeys between the two, because like I said, we don't want to continue kind of having random things go into your customers at different times. So this really allows you to coordinate all of your marketing efforts for your customers. And the fourth use case had to do with our unified analytics. So we're able to track campaign performance and everything that's happening within all of those journeys into CJA. And so some of the best practices and key learnings that we've seen at AWS is you want to start with the shared segments within your real-time CDP. And then using AJO, like I mentioned before, for those real-time in the moment interactions. And I want to really like spend a moment on that part, because I know that was something I think our team even struggled with internally, is understanding you still will have a use case for Marketo, because there's always going to be like the monthly newsletters, for example. Does that make sense, to really use AJO B2B? It could be something that's maybe spelled out within a journey, but you would still leverage Marketo for a lot of those kind of evergreen actions that take place. Whereas AJO is allowing you to then not only be able to market to your customers for the evergreen use cases, but those point in time things that are happening, like cart abandonment or application abandonment, things like that. You can still use Marketo for those strategic lead nurturing campaigns and the sales alignment. Like I mentioned before, Marketo still has a very strong integration with CRM like Salesforce. And so you would still be able to leverage that by continuing to use Marketo. And the last learning is just making sure that you're establishing journey governance. I know that was one thing Erine kind of touched on when we were developing the different templates for the journeys. That's something you really want to think through as well, because that could also quickly get out of hand as well. But you really want to put a focus on that so that you're avoiding any conflicts or overlaps for your customers.
If you don't mind, I would love just to iterate on that statement. So one thing that I think this group is probably struggling with, and you hit on it a bit at the beginning, Britney, was when to use Marketo versus when to use AJO B2B. And since there are a lot of overlapping capabilities that you just referenced as well, like how do you make that clear for your internal marketers to understand? And so I know when we were rolling this out together, part of what we really prioritized at AWS was building out an operating model and that governance structure that goes in support of these tools. So Erine, I don't know if you wanted to share a little bit of details about the work that we did, how we were thinking about that. And I'm happy to chime in as well. But I do think that's critical, because as you are adding new capabilities into your tech stack, as you are moving into this buying group centric world, really defining which tool serves which purpose and when, and how you engage with the right stakeholders to bring that strategy to life is going to be really important.
Yeah, I think what quickly became clear in P0 is we definitely chose some P0 use cases mentioned there that aren't necessarily like the best fit for AJO B2B. So there was definitely some trial and error involved there with like more like traditional time-based campaigns that we were adding in AP, whereas like ideally you want more like the evergreen nurtures, like those type of repeatable campaigns or like multi-channel experience that you're thinking of setting up, or like these trigger-based pieces. Those are better like marketing use cases for AJO B2B compared to Marketo. And then of course the piece that is like very different is also Marketo being more lead-based traditionally, whereas like AJO B2B is more like buying group account-based marketing. So really working with marketing teams that have more of those account-based journeys or like marketing strategies at large that you can then like work together with to add in AJO B2B. So think of like your enterprise accounts or like your larger accounts that you are like targeting a specific way today. That would be like good use cases to add in AJO B2B compared to in Marketo, where it is like Marketo is like a great tool, but in the end, if you want your accounts to have a more like multi-channel experience, AJO B2B might be like a better fit than the Marketo traditionally.
Great, thank you. All right, I think I just jump-started the Q&A. So I have a few additional questions also, but I want to make sure we get through the ones that were called out in the chat. And attendees, feel free to put additional questions that you have around the process, how they're thinking about it, key learnings in the chat as well. But we can just start to run through some of them. So Mark had a question about the cross-channel journeys that we are doing within AJO B2B. What are the channels that are currently being deployed? And Erine, I know you said there's a bit of a roadmap we're working towards also.
Yeah. So, I mean, the channels that are available like today, straight up right now is, I would say the original planning was to have email, web, and LinkedIn as our top 3 like channels, or like, well, part of social media, as LinkedIn is not necessarily a channel but a sub-channel. But those 3 were the initial like outbound points chosen. Now for the web, we run into a identity issue where in Marketo you have your Marketo lead ID, but on your website you don't necessarily track all the lead IDs. So like, how do we resolve for that like identity issue was something that like we are right now like finalizing. Once that's finalized, we'll have like web as well. So those are the 3 main channels. In our pipeline as well are being able to like share audiences, so basically like orchestrate journeys with more like paid media channels. So think through like DV360 from Google or Meta. I think like more the traditional, I would say, like B2B channels. Those are the ones that we're hitting first. Yeah, those are in our roadmap as well.
And I would say, I know it might not be a fit for us, but I believe just in terms of capabilities, you can also add SMS to a journey as well.
For sure. Yeah. Definitely missed that one. Yeah.
Great. Grace is asking about how long did it take for the team to stand up the first use case? And I think he's asking specifically related to AJO B2B here, because I think that's something important to call out. As Marina was referencing, they were implementing AEP, AJO B2B, and CJA simultaneously.
Yeah. I think what took the longest probably was setting up AEP. So like ensuring that like all the data was there in the correct schemas, in the formats and everything, like testing that out. And then also like first in your dev environment and then in prod, because like we have like so much data. So like ensuring that all of the data gets like added correctly in AEP, like that was the foundation. It probably took like 7 months, 8 months, maybe more. Once that was done, like I think like AJO B2B was just like a lot easier. So I think like AJO B2B probably took like, I want to say 1 to 2 months or so maybe. But that was also, I want to caveat by saying this, that's also the way that we have our like marketing operations set up. Where we can't just like send all the emails as a trigger from AJO B2B. Like we have like a specific system that ensures that like only 3 emails get sent out for each lead every week. So we have like a prioritization system for emails internally. So we had to have like a specific setup. That setup needed to be tested. So like that took some additional time that maybe for like a smaller company like wouldn't be the case. But yeah, like 2 months, I would say.
I think when you're thinking about implementing it for your organization, you would really want to ground in the number of integrations that you would be looking to enable, the number of initial journeys that you're wanting to stand up, the number of initial buying groups. All of those things are going to determine the actual time frame of bringing your P0 to life, as well as data sources, like Erine was saying. RTCDP is sort of the data foundation for AJO B2B. So having that up and running is critical to being able to utilize the tool.
Yeah.
So we had a question about how many people in the implementation team for ABM, AJO B2B.
Do you mean a specific use case for ABM? For a specific use case, so it depends. I mean, at AWS marketing, we have like a pretty right now like decentralized way of marketing where like different marketers are involved depending on channels. So I want to say we were like 5 or 6 people, like 6 people, like one from paid media, one from enterprise, one from like campaign overall, one from email, one from global campaign, plus me. But like, yeah, so like 5 plus me then. And like all the whole other like tech team as well.
Yeah, and the tech team was pretty robust. It was, I would say, I don't know, 10 to 20 resources, combination of Deloitte Digital and AWS, but that is also because of the volume of use cases we were trying to deploy in a quick time frame, as well as the RTCDP implementation. And so I think it was just the scale, especially as Erine was saying, the customizations that we were also accounting for and making sure that we were bringing live in the systems as intended. Who is the internal audience for the Contact Us dashboard? Is it sellers and sales or marketers?
Mainly marketers for now. Ideally, you want sales in the future. We want sales in there as well, just because the Contact Us does have like a flow going to sales. But for now, it has been marketers.
Okay, another follow-up question about the channels. Are you able to do anything on LinkedIn? How do you work through the audience limits in LinkedIn?
Yeah, so right now we are able to send like lead-based audience to LinkedIn. We have the paid media team that we're like looking at together with like some other like technical product managers. We're looking at creating like the ideal setup that we want to have for paid media with like LiveRamp, like and the connection to the other channels, and I keep forgetting another one, LiveRamp and one additional one, with that setup plus like the different paid media channels, and then also of course like having the connection back so that we optimize that lead flow. So it is work in progress still. We do have a general like idea of the setup that we want to have and that we're thinking of launching probably more towards the end of this year. So that would account for like some of those LinkedIn matched audience issues or like lack of matching. So like really optimizing that through like LiveRamp, and I keep forgetting the name of the other tool for it, but yes, those two.
Great. I think those were all of the questions in the chat. One thing I would love to ask you guys, because I know this is a learning, and I think it would be helpful for this group to understand as they're thinking of deploying this tool or going through this process themselves in conjunction with their Marketo instances. As you mentioned, Britney, Marketo was or is very customized at AWS, and there were workspaces, partitions, things like that. When we were introducing some of these journeys, we did run into some just learnings, I guess, about how the two tools integrate together. So I would love you, Britney and Erine, just to share a little bit about that process. What were some key learnings that this group could proactively identify as they're going through a similar exercise?
Yeah, I definitely think you called out a good one, the partitions issue. So if you are using workspaces and partitions, I believe I want to say this is still a known thing. Like you can only sync to
Yes.
one default partition from AJO B2B. So that's something to be aware of because, when we initially launched, we didn't know and we were driving ourselves crazy trying to figure out why aren't certain leads syncing and all of that. So that's something to call out. Another big one is upon initial connection, if you are not using engagement score, because we weren't in our instance, there is an initial backfill where everyone in your instance, like the engagement score has to be set to a number. So it can't just be null. And for us, we had to update several millions to just update to 0. Now, depending on how large your instance is, that could also potentially cause a backlog if you're doing any sort of data extraction. We are doing data extraction daily to a data warehouse. So that's another big call out that I would definitely want everyone to be aware of because we were not, and that wasn't fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think like some learnings we've had as well for the implementation phase is that when you're like testing these initial like audiences and journeys, like it takes a while for AAP and Marketo to sync. So like just bear in mind that like when you're testing, like you need to like work with Adobe on like force triggering the audiences and running the journeys when like testing out if pieces work. Otherwise you're literally waiting like a whole day for it to sync because of that overnight and 5-hour wait times that you have for all of the syncing between them. So that's just something to take into consideration if you're think of like deploying and eventually like testing it. And I'm sure I have many more, but I can't come up with them now.
Well, one follow-up question, because we do have about 5 minutes for you, Erine, is I know a lot of people who are thinking of adopting AJO B2B, moving towards account-based marketing and buying groups is something that's newer. And they're trying to figure out how they go about this process in their org. So I know we picked some initial buying groups that we were starting with for one of the initial use cases, but how are you guys continuing to think about optimizing that or working internally to really build out your buying groups? And I know you mentioned bringing in some, predictive insights or something like that. So yeah, any details you could share there for the last few minutes would be great.
Yeah. So for around buying groups, I would say we're starting like our content is mainly geared towards persona. So like TDM, BDM, like developers, like those more like traditional role-based personas. So that was our starting point and baseline. Now our next phase is more like a rule-based approach where we want to have like more tailored buying groups for like specific solutions and like account-based marketing like motions that we have. And that's, I would say, like the next phase. And then the third phase is really evaluating like, hey, is the juice worth the squeeze on like creating like a productionized ML model to like automatically identify like a buying group? Like, is that worth it? So that's more like the third phase, I would say, of like this buying group element. And then one thing I will say when you mentioned, Courtney, on thinking of really onboarding AJO B2B is also like sit still and assess like, hey, is my like marketing side of it, so not the tech, but like the marketing side of it, are they already doing customer journeys? Are they doing account-based marketing already? Like, do we have like dedicated folks that want to sit down and like think through like what needs to happen from a marketing strategy perspective so that you can actually orchestrate it in AJO B2B? Like think through that as well, because that's like a very huge piece of the puzzle on like being able to like move quick once you've actually like launched AJO B2B and start using AJO B2B. Because if that's not ready, like it will like take a while for like marketing to like find the right person to like create those journeys and like develop the content and all of it for it. So just take that into consideration.
Awesome. right, 3 minutes. Any remaining questions to add to the chat? All right. Well, if not, just want to thank Erine and Britney for being here today and the presentation. It was great insights. I think if the group has any remaining questions, let us know, let me or Megan know, and we're happy to direct those back to Erine and Britney. But yeah, thank you guys very much. We will keep you posted for the next Women in Tech session next quarter. And if any questions or topics of interest arise, please also let Megan and myself know. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.